Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, today joined by somebody who I really miss working with, one of the most thoughtful people I think in Lakers content production. He is Alex Regla. He used to do the show, the Taco Tuesday show with Alex Padilla. It was my favorite name on the feed. He still writes for Silver Screen and Roll. And like I said earlier, is just a supremely thoughtful human being, and he carries that into his coverage of the Lakers. Thank you very much for hopping on, man. How you been?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Very nice words, and yeah, I miss that podcast just for the name alone. Like people ask, "What's your podcast called?" And I'm like, "Oh, just wait. Like we got a good name here." But yeah, no, it's cool to be here and cool talking to you again.
I think I still have the logos.
I remember the
Out.
logos. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have. We made, like, when I first got to Silver Screen full time. We had new logos made and all of that, and I believe I still have them tucked away somewhere, just in case the right opportunity comes along and we would be able to work again together. But as it stands, this is going to have to suffice. We are going to talk today about my large adult son, Max Christie, who is a second team All Vegas Summer League honoree. He played supremely well, so well that you wrote about how you think that he might be able to carry that into the actual games that matter this upcoming season, and how you think that he might really push for a rotation spot. I want to start with, like, when you talk about rotation spot, what do you have envisioned there? Do you have like 15, 20 minutes here and there? Do you have it, do you have him as somebody who you see their role growing over the course of the season? Like, how much do you think the Lakers can rely on a 20-year-old second round pick, given the expectations they'll carry into next season?
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Like if this was any other Lakers team and they weren't like facing a complete win now mode with LeBron, in the twilight of his career and stuff like that, I think there'd be a real shot that Christie's in it from day one and like no
Mm-hmm.
argument, like we're just going to kick the tires on him. Now he's got to probably win that spot in training camp, and there's guys he has to compete with, and I can still see him regardless get like 10 minutes a game, 10, 15 minutes a game, depending on matchup or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's definitely still got to prove it, like outside of summer league. Like obviously he was great. He did what he needed to do this summer to get the right eyes on him, the right attention on him. And like from everything we've seen, like he's addressed like the key issues or the key things that people wanted him to work on. And
Yeah.
so besides, he's done everything right. I think it's just up to him again to show that in training camp and to outplay a guy like Cam Reddish, for example,
Yeah.
or whoever else he's competing with. But like I think back to like when Austin Reeves was a rookie and he kind of had to really fight for that
Yeah.
spot. And even then, like he really didn't have that legit thing until year two. So I think it's going to be like that for him this year.
Yeah, I even before Christie, or even before Reeves, remember with Caruso, it was always
Yeah.
just like, God, can we get this guy on the floor just like a little bit more? Can we just
Mm-hmm.
like see what this looks like? And it just felt like, pulling nails to get him onto the court more often. And then as his role kept expanding, you're like, how wide can this expand? And then, here we are a few years later. Caruso obviously was a big part of the championship run. Was a first team All NBA defensive player last year. We obviously saw the way that Austin Reeves grew over the course of last year, and it took basically trading Russell Westbrook to really unlock Reeves. I don't really, unless we're really kind of talking about trading D'Angelo Russell, and if they don't bring back like a guard or something like that, maybe that opens up some more minutes there for Christie. But yeah, I'm really kind of interested with the type of player he is, because if you look at the roster, his skill set is pretty unique, right? A
Mm-hmm.
6'5" ish guard who has long arms, did bulk up a little bit this year. He's finally above 200, and can move his feet and can catch and shoot, handle the ball a little bit. The Lakers have a bunch of wings who can defend other wings, but they don't have very many guys who can defend bigger shooting guards, right? The Devin Bookers of the world, the Bradley Beals of the world. Now that he's in the division, does it make you nervous at all that he is so unique on the roster? Because that's an important skill set he's bringing to the table, and I'd like to see a little bit more duplication with that skill set beyond him.
Yeah, no, and like it's funny because like his fit on the roster is exactly what they need. He's the type
Yeah.
of player every team, gives out 20 million to every summer, when they're fully developed and ready to go. So I think it's a matter of him beating that young player stigma that any young player has to be like you said, Caruso, like Reeves. It happens with any young guy. Like I mentioned in the piece I wrote that he's gonna have DNPs, he's gonna have a shorter leash than a guy like Cam Reddish, for example, even though he's still young just because
Yeah.
his tenure in the NBA is longer. He's going to have to prove that he's as capable and arguably more reliable than guys like Torian Prince, or like enough to show Darvin Ham, like, hey, if you do a multi-guard lineup, you can put a guy out there who's a bit taller who can kind of shore up the holes that having multi-guards out there will have. So yeah, like you said, he needs to kind of show that he has a unique fit and a unique like athletic tools that fit with any lineup. And I think he has them. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
showing he'll translate at the next level.
The skill set and stuff like that. You had mentioned that there were some things coming out of his rookie year that he needed to focus on. What was the thing that, like, heading into summer league you were most focused on that you were hoping he would have addressed between his rookie season and now this summer?
So yeah, if people remember like his first summer league, like his jumper, like just the difference of his shot mechanics. I remember when, again, I don't scout college players. I don't have time to watch every game guys play. So when they play in summer league, that's my
We
first
leave
time
that for
seeing them.
LeBron. LeBron handles that on his off
Watches
nights. Yeah.
them since elementary school. Yeah, so when I first saw him in summer league and I saw him shoot, that was a bit like he's got a slow release, he's got like funky mechanics, and even if he makes them, there's like a little red flag against like fast closeouts or length that he'd have to address, and he kind of fixed
Reminded
that.
me of like Ingram.
Yeah,
Remember when Ingram
it was
first came
real
into the
low.
league? He had such long arms that it just looked like he literally had to roll up and then unfurl his arms while he was
Yeah,
shooting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. My favorite, one of my favorite Plinka quotes was Ingram like, what is it? Like he unrolls at the rim, and I thought
Yeah.
it's true. Like his whole limbs just like Jack
Yeah.
Skellington just roll out. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like Christie, that jumper, like he literally fixed it like immediately. Like in the regular season, it looked quicker,
Yeah.
compact. Like he shot really well as a rookie, and again, albeit small sample. So that was one thing I wanted to see this summer. Like if that jumper was legit, and yeah, like that thing looks good. Like he's shooting off the dribble as like a pick and roll ball handler. He's shooting when guys go under screens on him. The catch and shoot looks good. Like I think he shot like 55% from three in summer
Yeah.
league. So that checked off an important box because like the Lakers still need shooting, right? No matter what
Yes.
they do, they're always going to need shooting, and they need a guy who can both defend multiple positions and shoot. So again, I think Christie has a unique pathway here to make some noise this year. And as I mentioned in the piece, like they got to kind of play him just because he's going to expire. His contract's done after this year.
Yeah.
He is on a 2-year deal, which is pretty crazy as only a 20-year-old. So he's going to test free agency. So they need to see what they have in him, and he needs to show like what he can do.
Yeah, the shot, it's the thing in basketball that I nerd out about the most. It's the thing that I just is the one thing I could do on a basketball court was shoot okay. And so like that is the thing that I can kind of, all right, like there are aspects of this that you can always kind of look for. And one thing that made me a little nervous when after they drafted him, and you see this a little bit with JHS, is the arc will change shot to shot, and with Christie and even with Ingram, the backspin would change from shot to shot, and that's something that you see when somebody is working on their shot, right? You're talking about different wrist placement, and based on that, the ball's going to spin this way, or it's going to spin straight over its side, or whatever. And this year, it was shocking how consistent that shot was, and the trajectory on the arc, and the rhythm that went into the shot. Whether it was, off the dribble, he still kind of slows himself down a little bit, so it's not going to allow him to really generate a ton of space quite yet in his career. But still, like when he had enough time to get the ball, his hand squarely behind the ball, and get a good look at the rim, that shot looked very replicable, and
Hmm.
that's the starting point on a shooter is how depending on where your body is at, where you're at on the court, how easily can you replicate that same shooting motion over and over and over again. And if he can, showing as much, and now look, progress isn't linear. We aren't saying that this guy's going to be the greatest shooter of all time, because if he maintained the trajectory of improvement from rookie year to now, he's going to be Steph in like 5 years. But like those are hugely important first steps that he just took in 1 year. And this is the other part of it that really excites me about Max is the head on his shoulders. You talk
Yeah.
to anybody within the organization, they all say this guy is an absolute workaholic. He absolutely loves this stuff, studies it, eats it up. And you see that. Like when you take the kind of steps forward in this regard that he did, that really makes me excited about like, yeah, he is in a contract year this year, but same thing as we saw with Austin. He's going to get paid, and I think he's still going to stick with this. And yeah, the head on his shoulders. Did you talk to have you spoken to people about Max and what he brings to the table? Or is there anything that you've noticed about like the mental aptitude that he has brought to the table here, whether it's with shooting or anything else in the game?
Not through personal experience, but like using the shot as an example, like how quickly he like realized that was an issue. Usually, it takes young players a while to like figure out what's an issue of their game and what's a hole in their game that they need to work on. And the quickness in which he addressed it, the quickness in like last season, I know people see him now and compare his body to last year, but throughout the year, there was posting videos whenever the Lakers post on their social media like these
Yeah,
workout videos. It's always Christie. It's always him in the background. And I remember
yeah,
throughout the year, like you can see the progress he already made to his body. Like it was instant. And obviously we see it now. So it's like you said, that work ethic is pretty apparent. That was another thing that like I thought he needed to address was getting a bit stronger and bulkier. And like that, again, that's something he did address. And he's still
yeah.
on the thin side, but like during the summer league, we saw how he used that extra strength and leveraged it and stuff like that. So he's already addressing holes in his game. And for a 20-year-old to have that type of self-reflection and be able to realize where they need to grow, like that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I didn't do that when I was 20. I it's just Jen, this is who you're with forever. But you mentioned the strength, and the strength is a big part of this. It is, aside from the shooting is what I'm most excited about because it looks legit, and the strides forward that he's worked on is really apparent there. But you mentioned not just the bulking up, but the concept of like practical strength.
Yeah.
A lot of people will you'll see this in the NBA where a player will come in, they'll be kind of thin and they'll bulk up a little bit, but then they'll continue to play exactly how they used to play when, before they added the extra poundage. And in this case, it was wild to see, and different. I think it's important to note it's a very different caliber of player that he's facing in Vegas,
Hmm.
and that type of athleticism, that type of strength is one of the biggest differences between that game and the game that he's going to be playing in a few months. But still, to see him, go from last year, where a good stat that you used was he was in the 22nd percentile of finishing at the rim, and he was just. I think the biggest here, the clearest concern with him over the course of last year was he got knocked off his spot super easily. He was a wiry kid, but this year, watching him block shots the way that he did, watching him hold his position and stuff like that, it is crazy how night and day that was. Even if you don't even want to talk about like what he did in the regular season, but if you look at him in the summer league last year to this
Hmm.
year, as that is the type of the similar caliber of competition, it was again just absolutely a stark difference there.
Yeah, and you mentioned the efficiency at the rim. It wasn't even just that; it was like the volume, right? I think he attempted like something like 12 shots at the rim or 16 shots at the rim. And
Yeah.
again, I mentioned a lot of that is roll, right? Like when you're out there, you're a catch and shoot guy for a young guy. Like you have a defined and limited role. You're going to do that. You're not going to try to overstep your boundaries, but it still speaks to like the lack of aggression, I would say, going to the rim.
Yeah.
And this summer, like how many times is he trying to throw down a poster on like four bodies? Like
Yeah.
it's just apparent. Like he feels confident in his body. He feels confident in taking to the rim, and we've seen him create separation with his like lowering his shoulder through traffic. Like he's finished around bodies, through bodies. Like that's a really good sign about, like you said, utilizing that strength. And a guy can have all the physical tools in the world, but if he's not leveraging it, if he's not utilizing it, if he doesn't know how to create advantages, right? Basketball is about creating advantages, like at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And that's what he's doing, right? So that's a really good sign. And I think he's going to continue to work on his body. And I'm excited to see what that opens up for him, because he has that mid-range game already. Like he can snake dribble, he can put guys in jail, like he can do this stuff. So if he also has the extra strength to kind of push guys off, and that should also help defensively, of course. So yeah, I think it's a really good sign that he's, again, bulking up, but also using it the right way.
Yeah, one of the funniest moments that I ever had recording with Pete back when we were doing Locked On Lakers, and it's funny that Ingram keeps coming up here, but um, it was, you watch Ingram, and between his like first and second, and certainly between his second and third year, you saw him taking off from further out to get,
Yeah.
two challenge guys at the rim. And one of the concepts that Pete and I always talked about back then with Ingram was like, trust your body. And then he took it a step further and got all creepy. He was like, explore your body. And I was like, Pete, you can't tell young guys to do that on public platforms. And yet I think that's kind of what we're seeing, or what we saw this year with Max, where he was really kind of testing those limits. He was seeing like, think of like every superhero movie where, they jump and as high as they possibly can. They throw something as hard as they possibly can for the first time. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
I can do this now, And it was funny when he actually did throw down that dunk that looked like eerily similar to the dunk that Kobe had in the same arena. You see him kind of get up, and you could just kind of like just quickly kind of see the glimmer in his eye, like, whoa, I can do this now. Like that notion of exploring and testing those limits is one of my favorite things to watch with Christie. Did you notice that same trend this year?
Yeah, it's like a light switch went on, right? Like he figured things out. I think, again, I think it's when you're kind of not used to embracing contact or initiating contact or getting hit. I think the moment you do and you can realize you can get back up, or you can actually finish that dunk, it kind of just opens everything up. Like you have the confidence that you've done it before, you can do it. So yeah, and I'm just excited to see how that translates against NBA talent, because I don't think, like you said, it's not linear. I don't think it's just going to go, he's going to have 49, 55, 96 shooting splits in the NBA this year.
Not.
But I think he has enough tools. And again, it goes back to that work ethic. I think he'll work hard enough to make sure he earns a spot. I think it's just a matter of how much trust the coaching staff have in him right away. And again, I think a lot of it depends on training camp, preseason, how good he looks, how bad a guy like Reddish may look. It all factors in.
Yeah, I think something that's really going to help him here is that he has young coaches. Like I'd be a little nervous if like Frank was still his coach, because Frank is going to trust his guys and stuff like that. And like if Schroeder was still on the team, right, then obviously Darvin would still have his guys. But in this case, with it being a Pelinka draftee and Darvin being in his second year as Max enters his second year, and the entire coaching staff being relatively young too, right?
Yeah.
And also like Phil Handy, one of the kind of trends over the course of his time with the Lakers is, with the amount of success that he and the rest of the development team have had, he's assuming a little bit more power and a little bit more say in some of these conversations, and he has seen Max put that time in. So I do think Max is, if he puts the time in, he continues to do that, and he shows that he's ready for those moments, I do really think he'll get a legit shot. You mentioned the defense. What do you think he can be on that side of the ball?
Yeah, like as a rookie, like he was solid, right? Like I remember again,
Yeah,
summer league. That was the thing that stood out most his first summer league. It wasn't the scoring, it wasn't anything. It was like his passing and it was like his defense right away. I'm like, this guy can defend. He closes out very well. I remember that was a thing. He uses his length very well to close space. He competes even when he was on the thinner end as a rookie. He still really competed every night. He knows where to be. Like he has a
yeah,
good awareness to him, and I think adding the exercise should only help shore up some of the weaknesses he had on that end. Because like if you're asking him to guard Kawhi, like it's just gonna be unfair. Like because guys could just
yeah,
muscle through him. So as he gets older, as he fills out a bit more, I think he's gonna be a guy that Ham will trust. And if there's one way to like earn the respect or minutes from a coaching staff, especially a guy like Darvin Ham, it's to show that you can compete hard on defense, like a
yeah.
Dennis guy, like Dennis did, and stuff like that. So that's probably the easiest way, the quickest way for him to crack the rotations, just to show like the defense is legit. You could put me on other wings, like I can hold up my own. So especially if the Lakers switch more this year, which they
Yeah.
might. They played a lot of drop last year. I wonder if they switch more with a guy like Hayes and AD out there. So Christie might be a guy that they'll turn to just from like a switching perspective.
Yeah, I really love, like, again, it kind of, you mentioned like the practical strength. The practical length is important here.
Yeah.
And he really has that understanding of like, he's like, sometimes you'll see guys with super long arms and the arms just like create more foul opportunities.
Mm.
And he isn't quite that guy. He has done a pretty good job, or a really good job, honestly, of understanding, the mental aspect of defending. And defending in the NBA is legitimately one of the most underrated skills in sports. You are just completely at the other player's whim. You can't touch that player if you're playing on the perimeter. If that player goes up for a shot, you essentially have to run in the opposite direction depending on who you're guarding. And for him, like, this was the aspect of it that made me the most excited watching him as a rookie. Was defensively, he never looked overwhelmed. He might, if he, or mentally, he might have gotten knocked off his spot by
Yeah.
certain players, because like there just are certain players who's going to knock anybody off their spot. But it never really felt to me like he was not equipped mentally to deal with that aspect of the game. And translating that to, what did he average? Like, did he average like a block in a game in summer league? Like, I don't know what he.
Like one or two, I think maybe even. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
So like, to watch that translate the way that it did, it really makes me excited. And you made a great point as it pertains to Darvin and the things that he really values. You look at the other players at his position and the guys that he's going to be competing with minutes for. The knock on Cam Reddish has been that he will just not defend sometimes. And the knock on even like D'Angelo Russell is that like he will sometimes not compete on the defensive side of the ball. Austin will, Gabe will, but there is really a pathway on that side of the ball for Max. And this is the other part of it too. And obviously I laugh at the Kobe's illegitimate son jokes as much as anybody else does. But like, you listen to him talk about competing, and that's where it's just like, you saw it with Josh Hart. Josh Hart kind of comes to mind,
Yeah.
where the Lakers were telling him like, all right, man, you're good. You're in your, whatever, you've played really well here. It was the year that he won MVP of the summer league that one year. And he was just like, nah, I feel like playing basketball still. I'm going to keep on playing if that's okay. And the Lakers kept on trying to pull him off the court. Like, people who were with the organization still from back then will say like, yeah, we were begging him, hey, dude, don't get hurt. We're good here. And he's like, nah, I'm going to keep playing. And I love that Max really relishes in the competition. And that is something that, you combine with all of the physical skill set stuff, but the mental aspect of it, I'm hesitant to say character stuff because I don't know the guy, but like that aspect of it, just the idea of, I love doing this, and I'm going to keep doing this until you physically drag me off of the court.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, and it was something hadn't even thought of. Like the guys he's competing with, like the knocks on those guys usually is like work ethic, consistency, like
Yeah.
attention to detail, and these are the things he's like thrives in, right? Like at least from what we've seen so far in his short stint in the NBA and summer league and stuff like that. So that pathway is definitely there, just based on his work ethic and based on his competitive nature. Like you said, I think like he gave a quote recently in an interview where his main goal is just to be in the rotation, like to play
Yeah.
as much as possible, not be an all-star, not, do all these things, like just let me play. So
Yeah.
like the pathway is definitely there. I just question how long it'll take. And what that looks like. Is it because of an injury? Is it because he outplays someone? Is it because someone just struggles immediately? I really hope it's sooner than later, just because you have to see what you have with him, right? Because
Yeah.
a guy like Reddish, right, unless he hits, he's probably not going to be here in a few years. A guy like Prince is probably not going to be here next year. So a guy like Christie, if you really want to embrace this continuity that Ron Palika has said multiple times, like Christie should be part of that core, if you
Yeah.
hold on to it. But the only way to do that is if you play him. If you play him and he doesn't work out, you at least saw it. But to just sit him like you did, like if he only plays 40 games this year, I'll be pretty disappointed.
And this is not your foray. This is not something that you typically like to do, but like what's the furthest end of the spectrum that you're willing to go to as it pertains to like hopes and expectations for him? Because I legitimately think over the course of the season, he's going to play so well and his like on off numbers are going to look so stark that like my mentions are always going to be, and gauging anything with my mentions is in itself like a terrible practice. But I can guarantee you one of those like kind of pervasive hipster takes that we're gonna get over the course of the season is going to be, are we sure he shouldn't be starting? Like, are we sure like he and Austin shouldn't just be the starting backcourt? So how far to the end of the spectrum are you willing to go here where you're saying like, yeah, I think he should, be this big a part of the rotation or whatever?
And we have to see it first, right? I mean, if he has like Caruso, he has to kind of follow in the footsteps of a Caruso, of a Reeves, where he shows that when LeBron and AD are on the floor, those plus minus numbers are just enough off the charts where it's like, yeah, we can't ignore these anymore. Like that was the
Yeah.
thing with Caruso. That first year, he was like a plus bazillion,
I
right?
think to this day, Caruso has the highest rating playing next to LeBron than any other LeBron
Yeah,
teammate.
yeah,
Any, like Wade,
yeah.
Kyrie, like it doesn't matter. Like Caruso was the multiplier.
Yeah, and same thing happened with Reeves. Like every year just got better,
Yeah.
and the sample only grew. And then it grew enough to be like, okay, yeah, he has to play. But like you said with Reeves, like it took a Russell Westbrook trade to make that change
Yeah.
happen. Like if that trade didn't happen, maybe he was off the bench the whole time. Maybe we don't get those playoff performances. Like
Yeah.
so things have to shake out right for him. And he has to kind of be when he's out there, he has to be one of those plus lineups. Like whenever he's on the floor, it's like, okay, this guy's part of a positive contributing group and stuff like that. So he's got to show he can shoot. He's got to make his open shots like he did last year. He's got to defend hard. And if you do those things, typically you're a plus guy, especially next to LeBron and stuff like that. So he's just got to show it over a larger sample. And like maybe by game 60, I don't know. I don't see him starting. Dude, is that a realistic outcome for this year, you think?
Him actually starting, no.
Okay.
But
Those
I do think
conversations
it'll
happening.
be a conversation piece. It'll be something that like, are we
Hmm.
have you seen what he's doing? Like these numbers are really, can we just like get a little, like at the very least, I think the most reasonable Max Christie take is that we are going to be asking for larger sample sizes over the entirety of the season. I think that is like the middle point, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think from there, like as we start to get them, and this is where your point about him contractually is such an important one.
Yeah.
The Lakers are going to be making a decision on him at the end of the year, and there is already enough buzz. Like, just walk around the arena while the Lakers don't even have to be playing. At this stage, like you talk to anybody in the league, and Christie was one of the guys that was getting the most buzz because it was like, holy shit, dude. What this guy is doing compared to where he was when he was drafted is insane. And then like to walk into summer league, because I had high expectations for him, right?
Yeah.
He's a second year player in this, and that was a thing that you touched on for Silver Screen and Roll, was like those second year players. If you don't look like you belong, or if you don't look like you are clearly playing like a different game than the rookies in that league, that's when you start to wonder a little bit about that player, right?
Yeah.
And then in the case of like Dragon Bender, when he got to like year 7 and he still didn't look like he belonged, it was just like, all right, yeah, we're probably set here. But Dragon Bender is like the greatest waste of a name of all time, right? Like at
Amazing
the
name. Amazing name.
at the time, like he comes along when Game of Thrones is at its peak, and
Yeah.
his name is Dragon Bender, and he can't even play in Summer League. But anyway, but yeah, I think for me, I don't think he'll ever start unless there's some kind of an injury,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'll ever really want him to start, because that would probably mean that like D'Lo didn't pop, or Vincent's like shooting isn't what it was in the playoffs or
Yeah.
something like
It's a
that.
great point.
Um, but I do think that like we'll get to the end of the year and we'll be trying to find ways to get him to like 20 minutes a game. That's kind of my outer reach hope for him, is by the end of the year you're looking for ways to get him on the court more.
That'd be a win. That would mean
Yeah.
he's obviously playing. He's showing that he can play at that level and that he deserves playing more at the level. That's a big win. I think if
Yeah.
that's where we reach at the end of the, like those conversations you said, like in your mentions or in the comments at Silver Screen Roll, if you see like, hey, Christie should be starting, I think that's a good sign, right? If
Yeah. Yeah.
enough people are saying like, hey, this guy's good enough to be doing, like, we again, I've been at Silver Screen Roll long enough to like, I remember when that happened with other guys, with
Yeah.
Caruso, I've been through it, so I know when those conversations happen. And usually, that's a really good sign, and things are panning out for that player. But like you said, hopefully that doesn't come as a result of other guys. Like something's going on with
Yeah, I'm
Vincent
so
or
sick of
D'Lo.
this guy. Let's just throw that guy out there. Screw it.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully it's a result of just him playing out of his mind or playing like really well, and that'd be a win. Like I don't want to like I know he's in year 2, he's on a contract year, and but he's only 20. He's played less than what, like 50 games.
Yeah.
I don't want to expedite this process because it's important for him to develop and stuff like that. But if we see him out there for 50, 60 games and he's playing 15 minutes a night, I'll be happy.
Yeah, same. All right. Is there anything else from the piece that you would want people to take like extra notice from about Max, or is there anything that like heading into, we're probably a month, maybe a month and a half removed, or before LeBron's like annual
Mhm.
Lakers camp or whatever. Is there anything that either between now and then that you're hoping to hear about him, or is there anything like in writing about this that like, is there a point that maybe was left on the cutting room floor that like you were really hoping to sneak in, or after you finished writing you were like, God damn, I should have mentioned that about Christie.
So yeah, like the only thing I just wanted to, I pointed out on Twitter with a couple like clips, like his passing was also really good this summer, and that was
Yeah.
something also that was last summer. But again, I'm not sure how the ball handling, the shooting off of screens, like I'm not sure how much of that translates in his role. Like I'm not sure
Yeah.
how much his role will confine him versus like what he's capable of. As a Laker, as a guy next to LeBron, you're pretty much expected to stand in the corner, hit
Hmm.
open shots and defend, which he can do. But he also shows he can, shoot on like off the dribble. I think I think he shot like 3 shots off the dribble, like from 3 last year, like just really
Yeah.
small sample. And we saw like 10 of those in summer league.
Yeah.
So he's shown that he's capable of doing more. I just don't know if that's going to be seen in a role this year. And I already know people are going to complain like, well, he's just standing in the corner. He's just doing this. We know he's capable of more. Like we saw that with
Yeah.
Maxwell Lewis, like another young player. Like he really didn't pop because he didn't get a chance to, right? He kind of stood in
Yeah.
the corner. He was the guy at his school. He's not going to be the guy on the Lakers. So I would just kind of temper expectations about everything we saw at summer translating to the NBA, because that's not the role he's probably going to be in.
And that was, I guess, the reason the Lakers didn't have Reeves play in the second summer league was that, the role that he was going to. Now, eventually, he spent a lot more time on the ball than I think anybody really envisioned, other than like Mike Garcia, right? Who has like been adamant since they drafted Reeves, like, no, this guy pops on the ball.
Yeah.
And credit to Mike for that call. But like when Reeves started handling the ball, and I remember, everybody thinks of the playoff game, but there was a game, I believe, in Utah where like 3 possessions in a row, the Lakers run high pick and roll for Reeves, and he comes off of it and hits that mid-range like free throw line jumper.
Yeah.
And you're like, hold on.
Yeah.
Is this something that the Lakers really need to unlock? And then eventually they trade Russell Westbrook, and that really does unlock itself for him. I don't think we'll really get that from Max this year, but one thing that I'm really interested to see is if the shooting is real, is how he attacks closeouts, and if he'll have that opportunity to attack closeouts, because the optimist side of the coin is that teams will be slow to scout him and they'll let him shoot, and he will take advantage of that to the tune of a couple open threes, every so often. The negative side of the coin is well, teams are closing out hard on him, and he doesn't really know how to attack that as much. And that was one of the things with, we saw him when he was playing with Hood Schifino, was how, they had Hood, they had Fino on the ball a little bit more, and they had Max moving off of it so that he can get those reps, which are really important. And I think that was the one thing that I wanted to see a little bit more of, because I felt like most teams were closing out short to him and he was just taking shots. I would like to see how he attacks closeouts more, a little bit more than we saw this in this one small sample size.
Yeah, and how they close out, how hard, how the type of closeout, that all depends on his shooting, right? If he's not shooting it well, they're not going to be closing out that hard on him. So yeah, if they're closing out hard on him, like that's where the passing can pop, right? That's where that body we talked about, those aggressive drives to the rim, all of that will come into play. That's why the shooting's such a swing skill, right? It just opens everything else up for his game. So that's a great point. And I just hope that we see it. Like, I don't know why I remember Isaac Bonga in summer league. That this is a guy I'm never gonna like. This is just like one of my guys, but he popped like when he was on ball, but like whenever he was off ball, it's like, oh, there's nothing, he can't do anything out here. And that was the biggest argument for drafting him, right? Like, he needed the ball in his hands. So that's just something I hope, like, Christie's not going to fall into that camp because he can do so many other things. But I always think of Bonga when I think of young guys who need the ball, and like, what else do they do utility wise? So a guy like JHS is another guy that I really hope the off ball stuff clicks. And I really hope the off ball stuff clicks with Christie so that on ball stuff can kind of complement it. But yeah, I just hope we see enough of it.
Yeah. Before we get you out of here, Jury Duty, how did you find it?
Oh, Jury Duty. So there's I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Tim Heidecker, but he has this live comedy show. And then I forget the actress's name. She's the main girl on this show who kind of is going after the guy with the glasses. I forget. I watched this about a month or two ago when it first came out, but she was a comedian and she does a lot of characters, and she was promoting Jury Duty. So I said, let's check it out. And then it's like, it's on Freevee. I'm like, what the hell is Freevee? Like, I don't know. I've never heard of this streaming thing. So I think it's on Amazon, right? And I read the premise of it. And did you ever watch the Joe Schmo show?
So I had mentioned, I tweeted out, I have never seen anything like this. This is a super unique experience that I've never had. And somebody said, you have to find this Joe Schmo show.
Yeah. So Joe Schmo show was exactly this, but it was a fake reality. It was like, was it like a batch? No, it was like almost like a Survivor Bachelor type reality show where obviously one guy is fake, but everyone else is real. And there's eliminations every week. And it's just following this guy to the very end. But so this basically this, but like in an office style, camera, documentary style footage. So I loved it. Like, I just gave it a try. Like, let's see it, like whatever. but I really dug it, and it's cool to see some people like getting Emmy nominations from it and stuff like that. But it was great. It was like funny. It was like touching. Like that finale was like incredible.
I
Like,
haven't finished the show yet.
oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
finish it tonight. I'm finishing it tonight. Like it's the kind of show that as I'm walking into my office to do this,
Mm.
Jen's like, "Hey, don't take too long. I want to finish the
Very
show
Jimmy.
tonight." um, it is just like it's such a like so I tweeted about it and my dad saw my tweet and he was like, "What's the show?" I tried to like describe the premise to him, and
Yeah.
he's like, "So what's the what?" And it's just like you just have to watch. You just have to like you have to
Mm.
dive in and watch it. And the one thing that I don't think they could have ever planned for happening the way that it did, and the show wouldn't be anywhere near as good as it was or as it is the main guy, the guy who thinks it's
Jesus.
like actually reality, being as game to do anything as he is. He's just like this total
He's
sweetheart.
incredible.
I need to take this guy out for drinks. This guy is such a freaking superstar
The
because he's
nicest
just
guy
like
ever.
it was unbelievable. I don't think, not that I don't think the show would not be as good as it
No.
was if not for
Mm-mm.
that guy. If he was just like every other pranked show, right, or in Punked or
Yeah.
whatever, they at some point it kind of dawns on them that like this is not normal, like something is up, right? And it became like a whole joke when I was in high school where something stupid would be happening and you'd be like, all right, where's Ashton? And like at no point does it dawn on this guy that like, yeah, Ashton Kutcher might jump out with a trucker hat and tell him, oh, he got you. Like
Yeah.
he just dives into every situation. It's just,
He's
yeah, it's so
naive
good.
just enough to make it work, right? And like you said,
Yeah.
he's so warm and like all these characters are just like insane, but he doesn't care. Like this is
Yeah.
like he said he's looking forward to it. Like they're his little family. And that's
Yeah.
that's why it kind of sucks towards the end, like it's over. And I really hope there's not a season two or they try to replicate this because I don't think you can replicate him. And without
No,
him, I don't think it works. So they landed like a jackpot here with him and
it's
he makes
so
it work.
good. I need to know the process that went into finding him.
Hmm.
Like, did they set this up like a number of times and like,
You'll
did
get
they
they'll get into it in the finale.
okay.
Yeah,
All
they'll
right, all
touch
right,
on
all
the
right.
behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, Alex, thank you very much for hopping on here and talking about my large adult son, Max Christie. If you haven't checked it out already, his piece is on Silver Screen and Roll, talking about how he feels like Max is kind of ready to take that leap based off of what we saw in Summer League. Like I said earlier, really miss working with you, dude. Everything I said at the beginning of the show, 100% stand behind. Super thoughtful content that you create. I look forward to every new piece when you put it together. You are legitimately like one people at the site that I read everything that comes out. So that's that. That's how I feel about you.
Thanks, man. It means a lot. It means a lot coming from you, and likewise, I miss working with you. And thanks for having me on. Like I watch these all the time, so it's really cool to be on.
All right, man. Well, we'll look for more of your stuff. I'll make sure to at you every time somebody wonders if Max should maybe be starting, and we'll talk to you then.
Awesome, man.